CD on the beat, ho.
But this nation does not belong to them. This nation belongs to you. Belongs to you. Because it was the hard-working patriots like you who built this country, and tomorrow it is the hard-working patriots like you who are going to save our country.
Dreadful. And it's I don't know if you guys in the UK understand how sad it is for us in Canada and in the United States to watch what you're doing to yourself. I mean, the UK is a great country. When I go there, I go to Oxford, I go to Cambridge, to these remarkable places in London, see your unbelievable deep history, understand how much the world owes the UK in terms of, say, the establishment of common law and decent government everywhere, including places like India. We owe the UK such an immense debt. And to watch you guys like spiral yourselves into the ground for this idiot, weak political correctness that's gone, that you can allow your working class women to be en masse sadistically.
I to you with every breath in my body, and I will never let you down.
The people have the sovereignty of the nation.
Yeah, nigga, this war. I'm putting bodies on the floor. I'm with it all. I talk to my demons and I see the writings on the wall. Niggas is dying when it's over. I get excited for them calls. And no ain't crying when he gone. Cause brody, we fighting for the cause. I do this shit for my brothers. We do this shit for each other. The whole world watching the movie. So everybody see me suffer. They done JFK my demon. Now bro not breathing. Life too short. So if I tell you I love you, I mean it.
Hey everybody, you're watching Mate's Broadcast Official. Another day, another episode. Today we got a somewhat of like a special episode for you guys. Not the usual, nothing. Yeah, definitely not the usual, topics. Definitely not the usual, political things that we usually talk about. But yeah, it's a special episode, and I'm gonna be, I just thought, this wasn't meant to be the show today, but some stuff has happened, and I want to talk about it, and I think these things are important to talk about, and I think that wherever you are in your life, we're all gonna experience these things, and I think it's important for all of us to reflect and not to mourn over things, and so we'll get into that. But before we get into the main topics, I just want to remind you guys to leave a follow, leave a like if you're watching on YouTube or wherever. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you'd like, of course, just leave a comment and tell me how the stream is, Tell me how you think the stream is, like anything that I can improve, any the lighting or the microphone or whatever it may be. Um, just let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely try to improve. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about love, death, and life. It's a very weird title to have on your stream, but yeah. So recently, a family member of mine, he's they're not dead yet, but like it's very very soon, and it got me thinking. It got me thinking about like I've never had someone like that close to me die before, and I just wanted to talk about some things because I think that everyone's going to go through this, and I mean everyone has a different relationship with their family, and but I was always very very close to my family. I love my family. I love my mom, my dad, and even my grandparents, both sides. I love them very much. But yeah, no, I think everyone's going to go through it, so I think it's important we talk about it. And the realization I came to, it's that that's going to reach all of us. And I don't say this to sound facetious, but we're all going to go through things in our lives, and we might not like it, but we really have to understand that we're doing it for a purpose. Like, yeah, what I came to realize is it's like, well, I don't know what it is for you guys, but maybe you guys, you have brothers and sisters. I'm not really close or like very close to mine, but once your parents, it's not a good thing to think about, but once your parents die and your grandparents die, and I mean I am young, I don't have anyone like, but once they all die, I mean, and let's like I don't have a girlfriend right now, but let's say I did, okay, yeah, you have your wife maybe, but let's say you don't, and they die at a young age, like, I mean, who do you really like have? You know what I mean? Like who's there to say no to you? Like whenever I do something that I think I'll regret, like whether that be like, let's say I'll never do it and I've never felt like it, but let's say this is just an example. Let's say I was to like steal something. The reason I wouldn't do it is not even because I would go to jail, but because you know the way my family and friends would look at me, and it's like if your family wasn't there anymore, if they didn't judge you, would you do things differently? Would I live life differently? Like how big of an impact are they? And then you'll come to realize they're a massive impact. But usually they're an impact for the good of you. They're never there to put you down or see you fail. They always want what's best for you. And I think we all forget this at times. Um, and someone like, yeah, I think it takes someone to something to happen in your family to realize, to truly realize that we have time limits. We're only on this planet for the betterment of, we don't even know how long. We could die tomorrow. We don't know. An asteroid could hit. World War III could go out with Keir Starmer and all his nonsense. Some nukes could be sent, and it could be the end of us. And we really have to learn that like this life is temporary, and we should really prioritize what's important in this life. And I've come to realize that creating relationships with people, that's so important in this life. Like we really, really, like the relationships we create are timeless. They transpire time, and you know the, they're more than just, your best friend and stuff. Like, they mean so much. And I mean, what else do we have, right? I mean, yeah, God is also super important, but maybe I'm falling out of faith. No, but I'm not. I'm still divinely religious. But I was just thinking, it's like, imagine someone like lived a super restrictive life. And I mean, not saying that God tells you to be restrictive, but let's say someone just lived like a super holy life, and didn't experience much or didn't do much because they spent most of their time praying. And then you get to your deathbed, and then you die, and let's say it's all not real. You wasted like half your life praying to something that wasn't real. You know what I mean? Like, and isn't that like sad? Like, and I don't mean that to like be beat down upon God. I think God. I'm a Christian, but like, you know, it's something to think about. Definitely, it's definitely something to think about, and it's crazy. Like, we could all die anytime, and it's interesting to think about. And then we really have to look at, like, what is the purpose of life? Like, obviously, if you're religious, it should be God. But if you're secular, like, I mean, what would that be for you? Would it be like, I've talked to some of my secular friends, and they've said, like, it's to have fun or to make the people around you proud. And it's like, do you really want to? If you're living to make the people around you proud, are you just living for other people at that point? Are you not really like living for yourself? It's an interesting thought. And then, if you're just living to have fun, I mean, isn't that like Sisyphean, which is to say that, it's the same thing again and again. Like, is life like, if imagine like you had fun watching movies, or like, you had fun reacting to, you know songs. Like, is that worth living for? I mean, like, because does that lifestyle outweigh the cons that are about to come? And those cons are, the cons of, as you grow older, you'll see, you'll get achy, you won't be as fit, you'll get more sick, you'll see both your parents die, you'll see friends die, you'll see your grandparents die, you'll see family members all over die. And if you're really just living to like watch movies, or react to music videos, or to, you know even just like build, make money for like another company while getting paid like 40 to 50K, like, is that really like worth living for? Like, is do you know what I mean? Like, is it worth living to do these things? Or is there like a greater meaning? Especially like, and then it's like we have to search for this greater meaning. And when we do, we come to realize, like, that it has to, I mean, of course, like, God has to be there, but I think that finding a purpose in building something meaningful that really like changes the world, and changes the world for the better. I think that's what's important. And primarily, that's why I created this show. That's why I created this show. I created this show so I can, you know, really create a political movement that's positive, and that drives us, or drives, you know, something positive in this world. And the political system here is completely messed, and everywhere it's messed. But I sit on this show sometimes, I talk, quite facetiously about things. And I say things like, oh yeah, we shouldn't have immigrants, and we shouldn't, do all this stuff. But my main message is really like, we love everyone, and we're all human at the end of the day. And we should always treat people with respect and dignity and love. But yeah, it's just like, sometimes it gets too much, and it causes problems in our own towns and our own cities. But the whole message would definitely be to just, to love everyone and to forgive people, because everyone makes mistakes and nobody's perfect. That's truly the message. And I think the teachings of Jesus, they're really timeless, and they transpire. Yeah, they do transpire time, and they still have a lot of meaning to them now. And reflecting upon this death of a close family member, it really puts you back into that mode of feeling like, usually, yeah, I'm go go go, but just thinking about these things, I think it's yeah, it's life changing, really. It is really life changing. I don't know though. And then it's also like, when it comes to like love, I mean, we someone like me, I'm always like very, very distant when it comes to that sort of thing. At least recently, because you know, not only are girls like a distraction, for like a higher purpose, but I don't know, like I don't really like get along with some of them, because they don't share the same values as me, and a lot of them, they prefer to indulge in promiscuous activities, or do this other stuff. And I look for more meaning behind it, because I understand that, you know even if you're secular, if you are secular a secular even if you're secular, and you believe in biology, you'll come to understand that you know the purpose of life is to reproduce. But there has to be more than just reproducing, to just stay alive, because life can't just be, about reproducing and, just continuing the human race, and, giving other people the opportunity to live the lives that we lived in a different way, of course, but, giving them the opportunity to live. Like, there has to be more meaning behind it. It can't just all be for nothing. And even the feeling of love, like, I don't know about you guys. This is cringe, and a lot of you guys in the chat, you might call me gay, or you might call me some other things, but I don't care. I'm just gonna say this. You know, I don't know if any of you guys have, like, been in love with a girl, but I think that it's important. Like, and not that, sorry, it's not important, but that feeling you get when you're in love with a girl, it transpires anything. It's not the same as with a woman. Like, sorry, it's not the same as like with a family member, or the love you have for a family member per se. It's a different type of love, right? And there really isn't any explanation for it. And for people to come out and say it's like a chemical reaction, I don't think it's true, and I don't think it's fair. I think there has to be more meaning behind it. Like, do people not, like, especially people who are secular, do they not question this? Aren't they like, there has to be more meaning? A lot of them will be like, I would love to believe in that, but the honest truth is, no, there isn't. But how is there not if you haven't searched for it? You have to search for meaning in things. You can't just give up. And you to believe that this was all just randomly happened. It was a glitch in the matrix. Literally, the reason we're here is because of a glitch in the matrix. Because at least, I mean, the Big Bang is doesn't explain how nothing turned into something. But it was, you then would have to look at the probability of it, right? And the probability goes like to around 1 in 1 trillion. Of our existence on this planet. And yeah, you'll come to realize that basically that can't be true, right? I mean, how can you really believe that that's true? Like, that we actually have, if you're secular, you believe that we randomly just appeared on this earth. But I don't see how you can believe that, because it's such a unlikely chance. And even if you do believe in that, are you really like gonna live the rest of your life and down your bed being like, that was, I was lucky that I was even alive, and I should, you know and there was no meaning behind anything I did, anything I created. All I did was, let's say work in finance and build this company's revenue up, or, you know, I worked in sales and, did better for this company, or, I created my own business and, I was super successful and, all these different things, and then you to just end your, be on your deathbed and be like, none of that mattered, because at the end of the day, I'm gonna die and people are gonna forget me, and whether that's now or whether that's in 100 years, people are gonna forget me, and everything I did will be seen as, you know, uh, 200 years from now meaningless. Like my name won't be written on any of this. No one will remember me. It's a scary thought to think about, but yeah, it's just something I wanted to touch on. Um, I don't know. I don't know. Seems interesting. I just wanted to talk about that. But anyway, we're gonna get into the main jinx of the show. So yeah, but I also just wanted to touch on this quickly. I mean, cause I mentioned it, but I didn't really continue speaking about it. Um, Let me just check. Am I live on Twitch? Okay, I am live. That's great. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to touch on this. Basically, when we're young, a lot of people my age, they try to act hard and they want to get, they want to get them yo, that's what they say. Oh yeah, I want to get that yo. Oh yeah, bomber clutch, you got a big thing, blah 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 blah, right? And they just want to smash, but I think what they're really looking for is like a connection with someone, and it's because they're missing something in their real lives, right? They're missing connection, or they didn't get enough love as a child, and yeah, and they, none of this happened, and then, that's why they join gangs, and that's why they, you know, join all these other things, and search for so much connection in women or all these other things. And don't get me wrong, like I think it's super important. I think that women, um, of course, I think that women are great, and the feelings men have to them are great too. But look, that was weird. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is basically, a lot of people my age, they have this like disdain, towards girls, or they're like, oh yeah, they're a distraction. And then there's the other half who like, see them as like, this object for sex. And then there's this half which, see them as, you know, the human beings, and, want to have a connection with them. And I don't know where I fit really. Um, it feels like my mind sometimes goes through all three, which isn't a good thing, of course. But I definitely need to. Well, it is more so, I fit into the last category. But sometimes you see them as other things. But what I was trying to touch on is, you know, that this feeling of love, if you genuinely think it's just a chemical reaction, I mean, and when someone in your family dies, it's you just feel some sort of chemical reaction to it, and there's no meaning behind that love, or that that sadness you feel once a family dies, and as much as you mourn, it has no higher meaning to it. It's something interesting to touch on. I don't know, and I don't know whether what you guys have been through, but whether even if you've been through like a crazy breakup, right? And a lot of people, like even my age and a lot of my friends, like when they were young, they got rejected by some girl, for example, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get super rich, I'm gonna get super famous, I'm gonna do all these things, and then she's gonna want me, and I'm gonna say no. They do it for the revenge. They do everything, and they try and get revenge on this person for hurting them. And I think the most important thing is to realize is that even after you get revenge and after they realize that you were the true person, the person who was meant for them, you won't even like them after you've built yourself up to the point where they like you. And you really have to realize and say to yourself, like, if they didn't love me at the start, then they're never really going to love me in the future. Well, they might, but they won't love you for who you truly are. And only you know who that is, and only only you know whether someone really sees that in you. And but yeah, I definitely think that there is like a, just to switch up completely, I definitely think there is also this like this this weird, dynamic that men have towards girls nowadays, and be super masculine and whatnot. And don't get me wrong, I'm one of those guys, but I think it's always good to take a step back and really look at life and appreciate the beauty and the greatness that God has created for us. And what's that, and what that's saying is basically, you know you don't have to always put up this mask or this picture in front of you. Sometimes it's fine to just open up and tell people, not tell people how you feel, but really like express your feelings in the moment. Like some guys, they'll be head over heels for girls, and they'll never really tell them because they're too scared. They're too scared to tell the girl, or they don't want to seem weak in front of the girl. And look, I'll give you advice. I don't think it might make you seem weak, but I mean, she just wasn't the one if she doesn't want to see you in that manner. But then again, also on the contrary, I can see why how nowadays there's like a lot of shopping around and being like, oh yeah, she's the one, he's the one, they're the one, let me look for them. And then, oh yeah, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And no, you really do have to search for it, and you really have to make do of it. You kind of do have to look at it from this business perspective nowadays. And it hurts to say that because I don't think that's how it was in the past. And I think social media and a lot of bad influences in our world. Like, I'll be honest, like a lot of girls even look up to people like Cardi B and people like that. A lot of these bad influences have, you know, they've ruined the real, the perception that normal people have of of women, right? I mean, or at least of that women have towards men. Like, oh, let me shake that ass, or let me dance like do all this weird stuff. And it's like I don't think that's truly what's gonna make you happy. And I don't think I don't think that's what most men truly want. Most men don't want a girl like that. And this whole ideology with feminism coming up, and then social media, and I bet you cheating is like, I mean, we couldn't track it back in the day, but at least I don't know. I think everything's, divorce rates at a all time high. And then I see a lot of people, a lot of even my friends, they don't even care that much about their family. They there's someone in their family, someone close to them might die, and they'll mourn for a day and then can move on, which maybe is a sign of strength. But and you know what, if it's done in a manner which is to show how strong you are and say, okay, I need to keep pushing forward, I can't hang on to this death and keep mourning, that's fair. But a lot of them just don't care. They don't care. They just want to live their lives and do what makes them feel good. Let them do drugs if that gets them a dopamine hit, or you know have a bunch of sex if that gets them a bunch dopamine hit. And then they just do all these things, and they're all meaningless, right? They're all just meaningless. Even having, sex with protection and all this, you could argue there's no meaning there. You just it's a waste of time. It's just to, give you pleasure. I don't know. Especially if it's someone who you're not dating, or someone who you're not like, if it's just casual sex, like you don't even love that person, or you don't even have like you don't care about them, and like you're just doing it to do it. I don't know. It has to be, like, everything we do has to have some level of meaning. You know what I mean? Pleasure is not a waste of time. I'm not saying pleasure is a waste of time. I mean, but you could argue it is. I mean, of course, like you should have some time to, cool down and entertain. You know what I mean? Like, pleasure is not a waste of time. You did what? I created a Telegram group, by the way. I'll drop the link in a second or later, towards the end of the stream. But anyway, pleasure is not a waste of time. I mean, pleasure. Look, I'm not saying it's a waste of time, but there's no meaning behind the sex at that point, right? Especially if it's just with some random girl. I mean, what's the meaning there, right? You're just doing it to do it. Like, and yeah, you feel happy in the moment, but like, does it really change your life or impact your life in a massive way? Like, what's the point of doing it? Is my question. You argue that against casual sex. Yeah, but casual sex, like, when I say casual sex, I mean with like someone who, like, you don't have like you don't have care for, like, just, you met her in the club that night, or you met her at the bar, and then you took her home. I don't really see like the point of that. I don't really see the meaning behind that. You know what I mean? You don't need to get life-changing experience from sex. Yeah, you don't, but it's like, then what's the point of it, right? I mean, I'm not saying you have to have a life-changing experience, but I'm saying that, like, if it's someone you're dating and then someone you love, the sex is one going to be better, and also, there's meaning behind it, right? You truly love that person, but when you're just doing it with some random girl in the bar, you don't even want to knock them up because you don't even love them, right? You're just doing it to pleasure yourself, right? And it's the same with everything. It's like, we might feel like doing things, but that doesn't mean we should do them. It is a fulfilling pleasure and a connection need. Yeah, but if it's casual, then it's not really like you're not planning to build a connection with them anyway. You just do it's just purely pleasure, and it's fulfilling, sure, but that doesn't mean we should do it. It doesn't make it right, right? Like, doing drugs might give you pleasure, and it might be fulfilling. It might be fulfilling to to do some Molly, right? But it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, because there's no meaning there, right? I mean, you in a sense, you're wasting you're wasting your time, and you're wasting your life. I think that sex should be done with a partner that you truly love, and it should be done within like a marriage, or at least a relationship. At least, I don't know though. It is a good thing to do it. You don't need to release. You do not realize connection is enough. Feeling you are desirable is why you have sex. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, why do you need to feel that you're desirable just because of sex? Like, there's so many other ways you can do it, right? And what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, like, when you're on your deathbed, are you really going to look back on your life and look at and be like, oh yeah, I smashed, like, I have like 80, no, I have like 300 bodies. I'm really glad I did that. That really changed my life. Among satisfying a horny desire. Yeah, but you really gonna be like that? That really changed my life. Like, wouldn't you rather use that time to, build something that's gonna, change the world, or, benefit people? There's people struggling in life right now who maybe don't have the same opportunities as, even me and you have. And, using that time for the better, I'm saying, would probably be better, because I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it. I think that, look, the thing is, it just creates a shitty society too. I mean, if everyone's just trying to satisfy their horny desire, and there's just, sex everywhere, it's like, what type of society does that create? It's like, I know you don't believe in the concept of like God or the devil, but I mean, let's say they were true for a hypothetical case, in your eyes. I mean, do you think God would be telling people to, just, if whenever you feel horny, just fuck a bunch of girls, or whenever, you want to satisfy your desires, and God creates a society. Do you think God would actually create this society where there's just sex everywhere? He probably wouldn't want that. He probably want people to control their feelings, right? I mean, a lot of people, for example, even watching this stream, they might feel offended with what I say. Like, I say a lot of things like about, I talk about, political issues, and I say some things that some people might not agree with. But to act out on your emotions, just because you feel like, oh yeah, I disagree with him and I feel like hitting him, doesn't mean you should hit me. You know what I mean? It doesn't make it the right thing to do, is what I'm saying. And it's important to control your emotions. The people who act out on their emotions, they're the people in jail. The people, everyone looks at like these gangs, especially, all across the world, you could argue. And, some women, they view them as masculine, right? Because, or you even look at people like Luigi Mangione, he killed the CEO of the healthcare organization. And, girls, they were waiting outside his courtroom to just get a glance at him. And, all these different things, it shows that like, oh, you are just impossible to argue with. It is not acting on your emotions. It is consent at center. You don't have to do everything with a meaning like you consider meaningful. Yeah, but you don't have to do it. Look, I'm not saying you can live your life how you want to. I'm just saying that like you're right. You don't have to do everything with meaning. But I think that you should search for meaning in everything. And look, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that like don't have casual sex if you want to do it. Do it if you want to. I'm just saying that you know it's more meaningful if you do it within a relationship or within a marriage. And searching for that, I think, would bring you more fulfillment than if you just went out and had a bunch of casual sex. You know what I mean? And controlling your emotions is very important, is what I'm trying to say. Even if you feel like you're super horny, because I'm not saying that this is the normal situation, but there's a lot of guys who feel, oh, of course it's under consent, but there's a lot of guys who feel the same, the same thing as you do. They feel super horny, and they act out on their emotions, and sometimes it's unconsensual, right? I know people who I went to school with who committed some actions like that, and they got, yeah, I mean, they got deported, literally. Um, but what I'm saying is we have to control these things. These things, yeah, we have to control them, and I don't know. That's just my thoughts. And look, I'm not saying don't do it. If you want to do it, but just do it the right way. And I think after doing it a bunch of times, you're being obtuse if you do not see sex has a link to feeling pleasure, connection even. If it is temporary, it is to feel desirable, it builds confidence. No, I'm saying sex definitely does, build connection, but I'm talking about the temporary situation, like casual sex. If it is temporary, it is to feel desirable, it builds confidence. We do not talk about acting in emotions when doing casual sex. What do you mean we do not talk about acting in emotions? It builds confidence. Yeah, sure, it does build confidence, but I mean, um, look, my main point here is like, look, I think that I just don't think it's a net positive for society. I think I mean, we look at let's be honest here. Let's just be honest here. We look at we do not talk about acting on emotions when doing on casual sex. Acting on emotions when doing casual sex. Yeah, sure. I mean, what do you mean you don't talk about acting on emotions? You feel horny though, right? And then that's why you want to do it. But what I'm saying is, look, this is my whole message. I think the West is basically, I mean, let's just be honest, right? I mean, the divorce rates are at an all-time high. I mean, it's the highest in the world. Countries like America, countries like the UK, or anywhere in Europe, they have the highest. Emotion is not horniness. Yeah, but they're both dopamine hits, right? Like when you feel happy, you get a dopamine hit. When you bust, you also get a dopamine hit, and it's a feeling, is what I'm saying. Horniness is a feeling, and that's what I'm trying to say. Like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, but yeah, we look at the West and we see that it's like a declining society, and one of the main reasons is because of, well, at least I think so. I think this casual sex and this like hookup culture that's come up nowadays. I think that, yeah, it's definitely degraded the West because do you think if you like, okay, let's say we were living 200 years ago, right? Because I am a reactionary, you have to remember. You're first to take into consideration anything I say. I'm taking it into consideration. That's literally the world we live in now. And the world that you're describing is the world we live in now. And you refuse to take in anything I say. You're saying that it's based on, look, what you're talking about is literally the world we live in today. And I'm just offering a different perspective because let's be honest, right now, the world that you're talking to, you just brush off my and dismiss my explanation. Yeah, because your explanation is the world we're living in today. I understand it, and you have to understand that the explanation you've given, because it's because it explains the world that we're living in today, and the world that we're living in today is in decline when it comes to relationships, and when you look at things like divorce rates and all these things, you know we're declining as a society. You look at birth rates, I mean, in the West compared to everywhere else. I told you to research about Middle Ages. Let's watch a video on Middle Ages sexuality. Okay, I mean, what do you want me to search up specifically? But my whole point is this: is that I'm a bit of a reactionary. So when you look back at time, do you think sex had more meaning then or now? Do you think people like okay? Do you think people were horny like 300-400 years ago? Of course they were, but they usually, I mean, the law was, you get married and then you have sex, or society would frown upon you. And it's really about control. And I mean, there was more marriages then, and people seem to be more happy then. I mean, now suicide rates are at a all-time high, mental illness rates are at a all-time high. And yeah, you could argue that we back then we couldn't track these things, but I mean, this lifestyle that we're living is still causing so many problems. So is it the right lifestyle that we should live as a society? That's my main point. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just waffling. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, if you want to watch a video, just no, they avoided being caught or had sex with sex workers. No, I don't think that's true. I think that women especially, back then they really preserved their sexuality. And they really did. I mean, you look at because religion was at an all-time high, and when we talk about people who believed in it, they genuinely believed that there was a God and they were being watched, and that's why the women did preserve their sexuality way more. I mean, this is evident among the body counts, right? Even nowadays, you look at like your grandma and you ask her what her body count was, it's probably less than 10 compared. And you look at the modern girl who's like 18, okay, maybe not 18, but you look at the modern girl who's like 22 years old nowadays, and she has more than 10 bodies. And it's true though. I mean, or even if it was done at a much lower rate than it is done now, because now it's promoted to do it. Back then it wasn't promoted even. You know what I mean? But anyway. All I'm saying is it definitely hasn't progressed society in any way. I mean, right now, society it's in turmoil, right? I mean it's not in turmoil. I mean, we're living in the best circumstances anyone's ever lived in, but it could always be better. And look, this is just my view. I just think society would be better if there wasn't so much casual sex. Of course, you can do it sometimes. I'm not saying you can. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world, and you should be stoned if you do it or whatever. And I understand that sometimes you feel like doing things, and you should just act on your feelings. You're wrong. They also lived much less, and when they had been sick, more chances. Yeah, but you say they live much less, but usually, I mean, people over the age of 40. I mean, they're not having that much sex. I mean, let's just be honest here. Like, once people hit 40, especially women, I mean, are they really having that much sex? Like, even in this day and age? Because, I forgot what it's called, but, you're most horny typically within, like, the age range of 18 to, like, 20 something. And, I think that's the range we're talking about. And when we look, I mean, women got married at such earlier ages back then too. So I mean, if they stepped out, maybe it was with one or two people here and there. But nowadays, you got girls, literally getting gangbanged. And there's a girl who slept with 100 guys in 24 hours. A girl who apparently claims to have slept with 1,000 guys in 14 hours or something. And it's like, is this really the society we want? This is what's being promoted though. This is what's being promoted. And it's like, how is this benefiting us in any way? Like, it's literally just making it more degenerate. That's my opinion. I don't know. I think that it would be hard to argue otherwise. I mean, if I really, I wouldn't feel good. I mean, if I came on the show and started promoting, telling girls and guys, both to be like and being like, oh yeah, you should all go have a bunch of sex and do all these things. You just can't stand people getting fulfillment in the moment they want. There is no such thing as degenerate when related to casual sex. It is degenerate. It's just 100%. It's just like taking drugs, right? Like they get fulfillment when they do Molly. Should they do Molly? No, because it's a degenerate activity. It's true though, and there's something within women. Talk to a woman that's had a bunch of sex, and talk to a woman that hasn't. There's like a level of innocence there, and men, we admire innocence in a girl. We don't want to usually, typically, unless you're like some weirdo, but you don't want a girl who like you get in bed with her and she's dominating you, or you don't really want like a um you take a girl out as somewhere, and she's been there with like five other guys before. The waiters know her and all these other things. I think that's obvious. I think that yeah, and then for me to promote that would be ridiculous. It's not. You just don't understand it. It's related to fulfillment and boosting confidence by having casual sex. So, I heard a lot of people say this. I heard when I was in high school. I've never done it, but a lot of people used to do weed, right? And they used to say, "Oh, yeah, when I do this drug, it helps me relax, and when I relax, I can do this better." So, what are we going to promote drugs now because it helps people relax? No, I mean we can't. It's a stupid argument. Um, it's related. I understand it's related to fulfillment, but like sometimes we have to control that. We don't like. It's just obvious. Like there's a lot of things that can fulfill us, fulfill our needs, but that doesn't mean we should do it. Then, if that like what I mean. If it's just about fulfillment too, if it's just about releasing the load, I mean, just buy like a doll, you know what I mean? Fulfilled in the moment is good. Fulfilled in the moment is good as much as fulfillment after a long work on a goal. All got a roll. You know what? Maybe I can agree to that more, but I would rather, yeah, I agree with the latter when in saying that, like, maybe if you've worked like super hard and you've built something important, and then you indulge in a little bit of this activity, then maybe yeah, I would see it as okay. But nowadays, people they're sex addicts. There's so many people who are sex addicts and they just can't stop. Casual sex. They get a bunch of money, they waste it on some hooker, or they you know they go on these like cam thingies and spend it on girls, or they'll send girls money, they'll go on dates with girls, pay for their rent, and do all these stupid things. And it's like people, this is the world we live in. This is the crazy world we live in. And I'm not saying it's like I'm saying it's wrong. Like I'm just saying be more cautious with your decisions. And I feel like it's kind of, I'll use this metaphor to explain it. I feel like having a bunch of casual sex, or after having a bunch of casual sex, you come to this realization, and it's the same. It's like you're searching for something. Like maybe it's just purely fulfillment, and if you don't understand that people have fetishes, or want to try stuff. Yeah, but fetishes, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't understand that much. Like, I don't really have any. But what I'm saying is like, it's like you're searching for something. Maybe you're an outlier. Maybe you're just doing it for fulfillment. But people who tend to do that, they're searching for something. And I'll use this analogy to describe it. It's like the man at the bar who's looking into his glass, his glass of beer, his empty glass, and he's thinking about his life and being like, okay, I'm here now, I'm by myself. What am I looking for here? I'm drinking this alcohol. It's giving me temporary satisfaction, but like, what is this all for? What is the meaning behind any of this, right? That's what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? I don't know. And I'm not saying don't do it. If you want to do it. But I'm not going to promote that. I don't think it's good behavior. Anyway, I don't know. The fetishes thing, I'm not really like. I don't know. I don't know much about it. I don't know if it's. Yeah. I mean, did people like 500 years ago have fetishes? I would be shocked if they did. You know what I mean? Now maybe they did, to be fair, but I don't know. I just think I feel like it's a new phenomenon. You know what I mean with the fetishes. Maybe it's not though. We don't know. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, we'll move on from that topic. I mean, we'll get into something else. Let me see here. Oh wait, let me read your thing. Most people are ugly and don't live meaningful lives in their career. You don't know how hard it is to find a good partner. Better to find people you can trust for sex and a good time than to focus on complaining you cannot find the right person. I can understand that perspective. I can understand that perspective, and yeah, but this is what I mean. I think, look, the standards that women have nowadays is much higher, so it's definitely more of a struggle now. But even back in the day, I mean, if we really think about the concept, like 500 years ago, you lived in like a small village, and even if you were a decent looking guy, or even if you weren't that good looking, even if you were ugly, but you really worked hard and built something that's life changing, made some money. And yeah, we could argue about the economic. It was easier to make money then in purchasing power terms. Um, but yeah, let's say you made a decent wage, you made a bit of money, or you'd always find a girl, right? No matter how bad you really were, right? Because there wasn't that many options. But nowadays with like Instagram and Tinder and all these social media apps, it's definitely, I can understand it. It's definitely harder to find a girl, especially for people who don't have the genetics. But yeah, it's a fair argument. Definitely, it's a fair argument. I can definitely see that being a problem, but I don't know if sex is the answer. I mean, yeah, it's better to find people you can trust for sex and a good time. But it's like, yeah, but there's no like, I guess so, but there's no like love there. There's no like meaning behind the sex. I mean, if you're just doing it casually, um, I don't know though. It's like you're still wasting time trying to find someone to have casual sex with. You could use that time to find the right person, but I guess for some people it's just not it. It's definitely harder. And I would even argue that yeah, social media has kind of made it much more difficult. So we do have to really try to you know yeah, try to adjust to the release of social media and things like this. So I don't blame people who do that. But anyway, we could get into some better stuff, some more interesting topics if you want to. We can keep talking about this. I was just talking about it because Yeah, I think it's true. I think a lot of people think about this, but they don't really say anything about it. Um, Let me see. I saw this TikTok the other day. We could check it out. Um, do like a little reaction to it. Give me a second here. But you're definitely not wrong. Let me post the Telegram in chat for you. I'll do that right now. Telegram, so you can join the group because I made it. One member, copy, invite, copy link. Okay, I'm gonna paste the link for the Telegram in chat. I'm gonna post on my Twitch chat. So yeah, Twitch at Miramatis. And let me do that now. Yeah, so if you want to join the Telegram chat, I mean that's it. So you can join that. People can prioritize career and can't focus. People can prioritize career and focus at same time on finding love. Definitely. And on finding love, and romance can take a toll on energy and emotional life, definitely. So it's easier to focus on finding casual sex and friends with benefits that do not impact emotional well-being as much as romance. That's a fair argument. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know. Relationships, romance, all that stuff. This is why. Look, if anything, I agree with you more. Well, not on the casual sex thing as much, but with this life that girls, they are a big waste of time, and they really take a toll on your emotions, especially if you have so many on your life. And they're also, I'll give you this example. Like when you're talking to a girl, or typically, guys who are interested in talking to girls, they're putting energy into that conversation, and it's a different type of energy that they put into the conversation when in comparison to talking to guys, right? And the difference there is that they're trying to really attract the girls, so they're putting on their best figure, their best face, their best reactions. They're really trying to get the girl to like them. That takes emotional toll too. I understand that. And the struggle of breakups and everything, that's definitely a problem. But what I'm saying is like, is casual sex the answer, right? Like, and is the reason you're chasing love, because the reason you're chasing love is not for like, I would argue that, yeah, it's because we don't know what love, we can't really describe it. I mean, I'm right. People are right to reduce their risks to their well-being by not being invested in emotion like romance. Yeah, but I think, like, I don't know if you're right, or like people who do this, because I don't know that lifestyle, but I don't know if people who do this like are just trying to fill a hole in themselves. You know what I mean? Because I don't think people who search for love are looking for, um, are looking for just like sex. They're not falling in love with someone, or they're not interested in they're not interested romantically in someone primarily because of the sex. It's more than that. And what I'm saying is, with casual sex, it's like one section of the entire relationship, and it's the only section. It's the pleasure section. And what I'm saying is, there's more than pleasure when it comes to a relationship with another person. And I don't know though. I'm not saying that, like, obviously you can do it if you want to, but I'm not going to promote it. I think that and then also, casual sex with like the diseases and STDs and all these other things. I think that these are also problems and issues that we have to raise. And you know what? Another issue that I'll bring up is, you can have romance as a secondary goal. So while you focus on fun and sex while searching for a possible relationship, yeah. But the problem is that, like, when you have a lot of sex, or when girls especially have a lot of sex, it kind of breaks them. Because, okay, I'll give you an example. Because this is how girls, at least my age, are nowadays, right? If there's a girl who's had sex with like a guy, and let's say he had like let's say he was packing. There is such thing as friends with that. Yeah, yeah, sure, but let me just explain this. A girl has sex with a guy, and she was, he had like, he wasn't packing. He had like 4 or 5 inches, and then she has, sex with another guy. He has like 8 inches, and then she finds a guy to find a relationship with, and she has sex with him, but the sex isn't as great as another guy she had sex with. She, and then he takes her out on. Eventually, she goes out on holiday, and let's say this girl's been with a bunch of guys, or been flown out because some rappers or something flew her out and to just have sex with her, and she's been with these other guys, right? And then she'll, her now current boyfriend takes her out on holiday. You are meeting and fun, but you do not get romantically involved. Just stay friends. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, look, let's say I live in London. I fly a girl out here from the Netherlands, right? And then I take her out on a nice dinner before having sex with her, right? And or I take her out on a yacht or something, and then we just do it, and then she goes back. And then this guy takes her on holiday, and let's say she'll be like, "Oh, this place isn't as great as the other guy did, as the place I went to with the other guy," or he doesn't have sex the same way that this other guy I had sex with does. That's a problem for me. And then it really, you can really see those minuscule things, they break down the relationship, because girls typically, they end relationships because they're like, "Oh, he can't have sex with me," or the sex isn't good, or he's not taking me out enough, or all these different issues, and they all stem from the same thing, which is, yeah, which is basically it's the girl. I mean, it's the issue of casual sex, or having too many partners, or being with too many people. But if you were only with one guy your whole life, then you wouldn't even know what sex is like outside that. So you wouldn't look for it, right? You wouldn't search for it. And then you have to look at it and be like, okay, only a small percentage of people actually, let's just say, because I don't know the probability, of course, but let's say only a small percentage of people actually have like this, a crazy physique, and can have really, really good sex. And then, a girl has sex with that guy, and then goes and dates an average guy when she's like 29, after she's done partying and done having all that casual sex, and she wants to settle down. And then after she gets married and whatnot, but after 3 or 4 years, she starts missing that lifestyle, and then she wants to get divorced, and she wants to go back to that life, and she still thinks she can live that life, but she can't because she's too old now. It's a problem to think about, definitely. I don't know though. I don't know why my nose is itching. It's weird. But these small things definitely play something. I guess, look, I would say for guys it's not as big of a problem, because we can do it in a way where we can detach our emotions from it, and just it's pleasure only. But women, they typically have emotion attached to the person they're having sex with, because I don't know what it is specifically. You can look at someone. This is a political channel. It's not really a romance channel. But there is something that, like, intrinsically, when having sex, when a girl has sex with too many guys, like, they usually are a bit messed up in the head, and they usually do struggle to find a guy. Versus someone who's like a virgin. I mean, have you ever heard of like a virgin? I mean, other than like a nun who like struggles to find a guy? I mean, every guy wants her. I'm not saying that guys want virgins typically. What I'm saying is like, is that, I'm not saying everyone should be virgins either, but what I'm saying is that these, they're things that if we promoted, I think society would be better. That's all I'm saying. But you keep comparing men with women. You don't know if girls have a harder time. You don't know if girls have a harder time to not invest in emotions, and you're blaming people's character. You do not have to focus on being with one guy, man. people might want to fulfill things like when they are not with their partner, so they cheat. I mean, no, what I'm saying is this. They definitely do have a harder time. I mean, and the reason for that is because we have to accept the fact that men and women, we're biologically different. Our bone structure is different, our physicality is different, our brains are a different size, our body is fundamentally different, right? The way yeah, everything about it, our jaw, everything is different, right? And and that also moves into the mental aspect. We're different creatures. The way we think, the way we operate. Women tend to be more caring, more compassionate. Men tend to be more, logical and straightforward. I think this is an easy concept to comprehend. And the point I'm bringing up is, if we're biologically different, we view things differently, right? Like, I'll give you an example. Like, even with the sex thing, right? Typically, men are fine with having a bunch of bodies, and if you asked me my body count, like, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna tell you, I'm ashamed. We'll just say it. But you ask a woman her body count, she usually gets offended. You ask a man his weight, right? How much do you weigh, bro? I don't think a guy is afraid to tell you. You ask a girl, she takes massive offense to it. Some girls even take offense when you ask them their age, which is a bit ridiculous, but you ask them how old you are, and they're like, "Oh, how old do you think I am?" You know what I mean? Or sometimes people will be like, "Oh, you look much older." If they say that to a guy, he'll be like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm not that old." But a girl will be take that as offense. You say, "Oh, you look older than you actually are." She'll be offended by it, because we're biologically different, and that mentally and physically we're biologically different. We're built in different ways. God made us in different ways, and we have to accept that. And the way we react to things is different, and it's just true. And the way we react to sex and the way we approach sex is different. I mean, literally, um, yeah, it's true. In the past, men tended to be gone for jobs, to go to far places to trade and bring products, like in a market in another city. So women were separate from their partner for more time. Yeah, but in the past you had like the family unit there, where the woman would typically should go back and should stay with her parents during that time. Or yeah, even if she was living by herself, maybe she cheated, but I doubt she's going around sleeping with a bunch of different guys. And because people then used to live in like small villages, and the population was also less, right? The word would probably go around, and she would be seen as like a whore, or like that's how she would be seen. And also, um, religion was such a big thing then, where people were so super devoted to their religion, and the laws were also connected to religion. Like, the laws were based on religion for the most part. So it was like a religious constitution. So if anyone found out about this, or anyone committed in this, they knew they would be sinning. And let's say someone caught them in that time, they would be arrested, or they would be stoned, or something heinous would have happened to them. So it was much harder to do that. You doubt while you don't notice a man cheat while being gone. Yeah, maybe a man would cheat while being gone, but that's just an assumption, though. And let's say he did, it's still not. Look, that is true. That is true. Who to find them in another place? What do you mean, who to find them in another place? Yeah, you're saying that, oh, men cheat in another place when they move. Yeah, maybe that's true, but we don't know that. And I would argue that, again, it was just super super hard to do so back in the day. I mean, there were so many religious laws. Um, and yeah, you can even tell, like, there's literally biological. When a woman has a lot of sex, her thing starts to smell, right? And the reason it starts to smell really really bad, and it's just like a biological reaction, because you're not meant to be having a lot of sex as a woman. It's like a biological thing that was created in us. And by men going out and having a bunch of sex, they're literally making these women go out and have a bunch of sex. It's like, it's not benefiting society. Like, you need to be the change that you want to see. So that's why, I mean, look, am I saying I haven't had sex before? Yeah, sure I have, but like, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't go out and promote. You think they going to tell his wife? How could they blackmail them when they had no photos or videos? No, no, no. They wouldn't tell his life, but I mean, that would go against the religious law, right? And they could report it to like the priest, and they would probably have like a court hearing about it back in the day, or like a disputation, as some would say. And during that court hearing, they would decide whether he was guilty or not. But like, why would he want to go through that stress? You know what I mean? Of even doing that is my point. And back in the day, they didn't even have contraception, so he could even make that girl pregnant, and that could be proof in and of itself that she was having sex with another guy. And these are all things that we have to take into consideration. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic, definitely. Um, but yeah, again, it wasn't how we were made. We weren't made to do that. And yeah, even pregnancy shows it. I mean, let's say we lived in a world without contraception, women would definitely be way more selective on who they have sex with. Way more, because they could get knocked up. Because they even if you don't, law required many witnesses, none gone on trial as often because of immorality. Local priest might chastise passioners, but self not care about each individual. Sure, 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 but yeah, sure. But what I'm trying to say is like, I mean, this is just an obvious point. I mean, they lived in a world without when contraception wasn't even real, right? I mean, so they had the possibility of getting pregnant from this random person. Because you can get pregnant even if you don't, um, you know, bust inside. So yeah, I mean, they were definitely way more selective on who sleeps with them. That's not debatable. That's definitely true. And yeah, also because of I think the religious laws did play a part in it too. And then also, I think they also truly were. There was people believed in God to a much higher degree than they do nowadays, and they were scared to sin. A lot of people were, and maybe they did once or twice, but to say there were people, like nowadays, some girl sleeping with 1,000 men in like 12 hours. I mean, that's ridiculous. Local priest, yeah, I mean, yeah, and the priest, yeah, I don't know, but I don't know. I just think that it's just becoming society is becoming more degenerate, and casual sex is adding to that. That's clear to see. That's clear to see. But anyway, we don't have to talk about that. It's look, it's like a morality argument, really. And I mean, if you aren't really religious, I can see the argument, because you think morality is subjective, and it doesn't matter what we do, and I just want to feel pleasure. But I don't know. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting thought, though. Definitely an interesting thought. Uh, I don't know why my nose is itching. What the hell? But anyway, yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I'm not too sure. Any any of the other guys want to say something, or give their thoughts about that particularly? Um, Also, yeah, if you want, you can go check out some of the TikToks I made. I think they were quite good. I think they were quite good, but yeah, I mean, if you want to leave like a comment, tell me how I can improve, or maybe you recommend some clips then, or from the stream that I should post, just type it in the chat and I'll think about it. None gonna. I don't know though. But anyway, Let me try get this video up. I'll react to it. I mean, I don't know if this is too relevant. When was this post? February 18th? I think it's a week old. I don't know if we should react to that. I think it was interesting though. Let me find it. I'll watch later. Instead, we're gonna do a. Let me just check if my stream is working. I don't know why, but it's streaming on 2 platforms. Like, what the hell? Yeah, very, very strange. My YouTube is completely glitching. Streaming on 2 platforms. But yeah, okay, we'll react to this video. And then we're gonna call it a day for this stream.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of the Medieval Podcast. I'm Danielle Sapolsky, also known as the 5-Minute Medievalist. Before we get into the medieval goodness, I'd just like to thank you all for being patient and supportive last week when I was dealing with some personal issues and missed an episode. I'm so happy. Thanks, Eleanor, for joining us on the podcast to talk about medieval sexuality. Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm so happy to have you. So we're going to start, I think, by talking about why it can be sort of difficult and challenging to talk about sexuality when you're talking about a different culture this far in the past. So what are some of the challenges of studying sexuality so long ago?
I mean, I guess one of the big problems that we have is society's problem with sex generally, right? So it's still, even though we're pushing the boundaries out a little bit more, there's things like, hey, this podcast has to be flagged not safe for work because it's not okay to just talk about sexuality. And if that's true for us now, right, in our relatively open society, it's even more true in the medieval period when the church has a lot more influence in people's lives. And fundamentally, people still really believe a lot of the religious things about sex. So a lot of the time when you're digging through and you want to find out about someone's sex life, it's really, really hard, right? Because people aren't necessarily like leaving a journal that says I did this with this person and here's what's happening. Historians of the future are going to be really, really excited about all of the blogs if we manage to make them stick, because there's a lot more of that around today. But a lot of what I'm looking at is people saying no, that's very naughty, that's bad, you don't want to have that sex. And that's the kind of thing that we're working with, is sort of like negative things to try to see a really clear view of what people are actually doing in terms of sexual practice.
Yeah, exactly. Because in some ways, it's like looking at law where you have to look at what people say not to do in order to figure out what people are actually doing.
Exactly. And then it can even be tricky on top of that, because we'll have stuff like, for example, medieval penitentials, which, for the uninitiated, that's kind of like a handbook that priests would have where they would use that when people are coming to give confession. So, you'll maybe try to nudge people towards confessing particular things. Or if they hear a particular thing, go, oh, okay, here's this sin. That means, 10 Hail Marys, this many days of fasting, that kind of a thing. And we don't know necessarily when we read these penitentials if these are actually responding to real sins that priests hear, or if this is like some guy who's not allowed to have sex, who's kind of like massively horny, like writing about what he thinks people are doing. So it's really kind of a tricky source, because it's like, all right, well, is this happening, or is this, the kind of things that sort of repressed people are thinking are happening?
So in general, and it's hard to talk in generalities, but if we can, in general, what is the church's stand on sex back in the Middle Ages?
Okay, so the church's stand on sex is almost exactly what it is now, which is that sex is for making more humans, right? So the only time you should really be having sex is if you are intending to bring another person into this world. So ideally, really, if we're being real about it, you just shouldn't be having sex at all. The best thing you could possibly do is be a monk or a nun or a priest or something like that, and devote yourself to never having sex ever. Failing that, there's the kind of very famous phrase that we use, which is, it's better to marry than to burn. So if you're like, oh man, I'm really going to definitely have to have sex, the first thing you need to do is get yourself married. It's got to be, like all religious and above board. And then you can have sex if you are specifically intending to procreate. And so, for you and I, we might go, oh, okay, well, that sounds like pretty good and, maybe pretty reasonable. The thing is,
but I mean, even if we look at this like lifestyle, right? I mean, wouldn't sex, even the thought of sex, be seen as like so? It would be seen as a much like more valuable thing than it is seen as nowadays. And what I'm trying to say here is basically, if we have to pass through all these different barriers and we have to, meet all these obligations in order to even have sex in the first place, we would look at it with a higher value and a higher meaning, right? Whereas nowadays, where sex comes easy, you can literally, some people, whether it depends on who you are, of course, but some people can choose to pay for it. Some people can, there's a lot of guys who do that, especially in London. But I refrain from paying. I don't think paying's that good. I think it's worse than the other way around. But I think that, yeah, even if you were to go to like a club and find someone casually and just have sex, it has so much less meaning behind it. There's less value tied to sex, and you could argue that even you know leads to more cheating, because when there's less value tied to sex, what's considered to be cheating you know, can become transparent and or translucent, I should say. You know, so I don't know. I think it's an
There's a
interesting
lot of
topic
prescriptions
to
on top of that as well. It's not like, oh, well, as long as you're hoping at the end of the day to have a kid, go nuts with anything within those parameters. The idea is to kind of like get in, get out as fast as possible. A little on the nose there. And basically the only thing that's really acceptable to be doing is penis and vagina sex. And like to the point where it's like, okay, no, what we would call, some people call, quote unquote foreplay, which I try to say is, other kinds of sex. So like manual sex, oral sex, anal sex, all that is a big no, because that can't get anybody pregnant, so you shouldn't be doing that. And it's even down to stuff like there shouldn't be any quote unquote lascivious kissing. Like, don't try to turn each other on too much. Like, don't try to have all that much fun. Just like really try to procreate and get out of there as fast as you can. But there's also kind of like a different tack on that as well, because for medieval people, they believed that for conception to happen, women needed to orgasm as well as men. Because the idea here is that, all right, well, if the, quote unquote seed that men have is released when they orgasm, which, sidebar, men can orgasm without ejaculating, and they can not orgasm and ejaculate, just to make that clear. But, medieval people were being, kind of basic about it. It's chill. But the idea is, okay, so that has to happen, right? So for a woman to release her seed, she's going to need orgasm as well. So even though we're kind of like, oh man, this is really kind of like pleasure phobic, this isn't really something that you want to see, there is a little bit more of an emphasis on a necessity for women's pleasure in here as well, which is interesting, I think.
Yes, and when we had Ruth Mazokaris on the podcast talking about marriage, we were talking about how the conjugal debt goes both ways. So there is an expectation that the women have to be having sex as well. They should be enjoying it a little. Not
a little, just a little. And I mean, another really interesting thing is for medieval people, women are the ones who are actually really up for it, which is, a complete inversion of the things that we tend to think now. We tend to think, oh, well, women, they're not that interested in sex. You got to kind of trick them into having sex. This is the origin of every pickup artist in the world and all of that. But for medieval people, women are really, really into sex, and you've got to kind of like control them and like keep that under wraps. It's like, oh no, they're asking for sex all the time. Well, better marry them off, and then they can have this little bit of sex. They can have this little penis and vagina moment.
And I think the reason why they were so keen on having sex is because, again, they've never done it before, and they were excited at the thought of it. But nowadays, yeah, you see girls push it away because literally every guy they meet, every guy they see wants to have sex with them. That's their goal. And before it was much harder to do that, right? I mean, you had to be married to this girl in order to have sex with her, and she had to be married to that man to have sex with him. Now, every guy wants to just smash her friend. Every guy just wants friends with benefits with them. And that's why they probably want to have less sex, and that's why birth rates are declining. That's why, I'm not saying birth rates are tied to sex, but yeah, if they don't, and if they choose to actually have more sex, that just leads to a bunch of single moms, and yeah, typically it does. I'm not saying in every situation, but in general.
And that'll be okay. So it's weird because some things are total inversions of what we think, and some things kind of track really well.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're talking about pregnancy occurring because women have orgasmed, this is still one of those things that's really kind of fraught and still around right now, when people are talking about rape cases still. And it's kind of funny how some of the most repressive things we've kept around and some of the most freeing things we haven't.
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely true because, it's the same way that we will think, for example, about rape and sexual assault now, where this could kind of be used against women if they decide to bring a rape case in the medieval period. If you get pregnant, then people will go, but you orgasmed, didn't you? That's why you're pregnant. So was it really rape?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
That's crunchy. So, it's not all fun and games. It has to be said,
Yes. And it is an important part, which is why I wanted to have you on the podcast. It's an important part of society, not only because of the marital element, but because it is a serious driver of human behavior.
Oh, absolutely. And this is the thing, right? So we've got the marital element, and you can talk about what the church wants you to do until the cows come home. And that's really cute.
Read your thing. The people lived among people who were in their place on a temporary basis, or encountered soldiers and employees of institutions or businesses who, traveling trades men and who came in their area for a shorter time. So novelty was making things more exciting and interrupted boredom. Um, Interrupted boredom most tend to feel in village since most lived in village. Plus, there were festivals when many gathered. Parents organized events where young people could meet. There were weddings. People went on pilgrimage. Yeah, yeah, sure. But I think what I'm trying to say here is that there was that sex was definitely looked at with more value, and we can understand that when something's more scarce, the demand for it is higher. That's why I would say that demand is so low for sex nowadays, typically, as they said in this podcast.
But that's not what people were doing. So and again, of course, penitentials are a tricky source, as I say, but that shows us there's actually this wide array of sexual behavior happening completely outside the bounds of marriage, or even the sexual behavior that's not acceptable within the bounds of marriage happening, because you can still get told that you're very naughty by your priest if you are deciding to have, for example, oral sex with your husband. That still gets you in trouble, not as much trouble, but it's trouble nonetheless.
Yeah, and
Do opportunities to cheat and meet were not as reduced as you imagine?
even certain days on which you are not supposed.
Look, yeah, sure, but what I'm saying is that it would, if they did cheat, like again with the idea of them being getting pregnant, or them if they cheated a lot, then they it would start to stink down there. These natural things, they would definitely be a reason why not to cheat. I would, and that's why people have more sex nowadays, is because of contraception, and because of the medication and things that we have nowadays to, let's say, make it smell less or to cure infections. Um, but yeah.
Supposed to have sex as well.
Oh yeah, like Sundays are right out of the question, and as are like high holy days, and we don't. Well, the phrase isn't exactly high holy days. Sorry to steal that from our Jewish brethren, but holy days of obligation, sort of. So like the Immaculate Conception or Michaelmas, all the really big celebrations. You're not supposed to be having sex. No sex during any of Lent. No sex during any of Advent. No sex on Christmas. The list goes on. And so when we think about that, obviously it's clear that people aren't following these rules, because if that's true and no one can have sex during Advent, then no one in the medieval period would have ever been born in September.
Plus, they had neighbors who had kids maturing around them. Old women had the opportunity to cheat with young men, but I don't think young men would typically want to cheat with old women. I don't think so.
And that's just not the case, is it? So, there's plenty of things going on that are outside of what the church's kind of idealized conception of what
old is in mature. Yeah, but maybe they did, but it's just an assumption. I don't think, if we're being honest, sex happened way less compared to the rate that it happens nowadays. I mean, that's not all, that's, you can't argue against that, and you just can't argue against that.
What sex should be. It's just that you got to make the connections on your own,
Right. And the connections that we would make and the connections that medieval people would make are confusing beyond all these rules. I mean, you're supposed to go and confess that you've had these thoughts or you've done these things. But then at the same time, medieval culture was pretty bawdy, and that you have all sorts of examples of sex being funny and something that you should be laughing at, participating in, all that stuff at the same time as you're supposed to not be thinking about it at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things. I guess we still have this kind of a societal expectation now where, we do tend to think of sex as something kind of very naughty, but also we use it to sell hamburgers and stuff like that. So, it's sort of the same thing. And medieval people loved it. We've got all these wonderful examples of medieval art. So, for example, a lot of people, I think, would have seen various phallus trees. We've got some really great examples of nuns picking penises off of trees, or sometimes even in churches and things like this, you'll have whole frescoes and there'll be this big tree and there's just all of these erect dicks hanging from it, and that's a big part of the medieval imagination. And I mean, part of it, I think, is also that they've got kind of less of a concept of privacy than we do. They're kind of most people, if you think most people are peasants, so 99% of people are peasants, and you're all kind of living in this house, and do you have your own room? Not necessarily. So a lot of the time you're kind of maybe having sex around other people if you're not particularly rich, and everyone just sort of gets on with it, And so there's also a lot of prohibitions in stories, for example, because when people are looking for privacy, there's all these apocryphal stories about couples who've gone into a church to have sex because it's it's open and it's dry and nobody's there. Okay, so they go into a church and they have sex, and then they get stuck together. because those saints that the relic is in the church, it's like, oh, that's very naughty, and they stick them together. And then kind of like part of their penance is they'll have to go on procession for the whole town to another set of relics, make confession, and everyone just kind of stands and like points and laughs at these people who are stuck together from sex. And like that is just a champagne humor as far as they're concerned. Like that's as good as it gets.
Yeah, but this is what I'm trying to say. There were so many cons to having sex in the past. It would be hard to do it, and if they did, like, especially doing it in a church, I mean, this has to be rare. I mean, I don't even know people who do it in a church nowadays. Like, it's so disrespectful to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like these, like, yeah, I mean,
And obviously that might not be happening, but they like stories about that. So even though it's probably unlikely that a saint cursed some people having sex in a church and they got stuck together, people are like, I love this. Let's write this down and tell the story.
no, it's just like they talk about it with like such a. It's just not a good thing. Like, they said here, they're laughing. Oh, if people had sex in the church. I mean, how is that good in any way? It's so disrespectful. Like, people like to make jokes of many men like older women. Old was also tied to being richer and healthy since life was shorter. Because, yeah, but men typically don't like richer women. I mean, at least I don't. It is good. Typically men took care of women, and it was the nuclear family in the sense where the men go to work and the women stay at home. That's like how I understand the medieval times to be. And yeah, I mean, if they liked older women, I don't really see how that's true. I mean, there was literally a bunch of like pedophiles in today's age. So basically, people getting married to like 16-year-olds to 14-year-olds at that time, and the reason for that was because they found them more attractive, and arguably because they were virgins, or whatever reasons might conspire. But you get what I mean. But yeah, it is good, it is exciting to have sex in the church. Yeah, it's just disrespectful though. Like you don't need to do things like that. Like, it's just because you have no morality, right? Like, it's such a bad society. Think about it though. Genuinely think about it. Like, do you think like you talk to a murderer on the partner for life was most cases boring and unfulfilling and most cheated? I doubt that's true. And also, yeah, having sex in the church, this is nothing to do with morality. No, it is morality, because you know what? If you're secular, if you're an atheist, you don't believe in morality, or you believe morality is subjective and whatever. But do you think someone who was like a murderer, let's say he committed mass murders, he's like, oh yeah, this is exhilarating, this is fun, and that's what he thinks. You would call him a psychopath. We would consider him a psychopath terrorist. Now, am I comparing the action of sex to murder? Maybe, but what I'm trying to say is, in both these scenarios, they feel exhilarating, and they feel a level of fulfillment, because that they're messed up in their head, is what I'm trying to say. So, and typically you can look at trusted like military soldiers on this. They say sometimes after you kill the first person, some people even get addicted to killing people. That's why you see some ex-military people. Some of them, they become mass murderers, or they go out on mass shootings. And this is one of the reasons for it, because it
And
makes
that's
things
what's
really
important, and that
valuable.
tells us a lot about their sense of humor.
I love that you say that it's unlikely.
I mean, never say never. I'm open to a wide range of possibilities if we consider that there's an infinite number of universes that's happened somewhere.
That
So
that is so true. And that is a great way to come at your academic work, I think.
I try.
I do have to ask about these phallus trees. What is up with the phallus trees? Do you think that they're just to be funny, or is there a reason that they are on the tree?
Well, I mean, I think that in the first place, I think that they're definitely meant to be funny. And congratulations, medieval people, you got me. That's hilarious. But I also think there's a kind of like a real link between kind of like fertility here, right? So it's like, dicks are kind of like fruits, and they're on these trees, and this is like a kind of idea of fecundity. But there's also within this, a lot of the time when you see phallus trees, there will be kind of like women picking from them. And it's a little bit kind of like a snarky remark about how much women like sex, and how they're kind of like, oh, they're picking the penises that they want. And it's a little bit about how women kind of conduct their own business, a little bit about fertility.
Look, I'm going to do a quick search here, because I think she's talking absolute nonsense. Like, there's no evidence to back it up. I mean, let's look. We'll do a quick search, and I'll even prove. Did in the medieval times was sex as common as it is nowadays? Oh, maybe create was. No. See, these are all. Let's go to medievalists.net. Okay. Okay, see, these are all biased websites. She's a professor. There's no ways this is true though. Do you really think people in the past were having more sex than nowadays? Just logically speaking, there's no way. There's literally contraception nowadays. There's so much medication which allows you to have more sex. And then there's OnlyFans and all these like. And then yeah, girls are literally getting this girl who had 100 sex with 100 guys in one day. She blew up. She blew her whole channel, everything. She blew up, and she's from the UK too. I heard about her before anyway. But the point is that she blew up because of it. It's literally promoted to have sex now. Of course, people are having more sex now. It's like during prohibition with the drinking thing in America when it came to beers. People obviously drink more when something is unprohibited versus prohibited. Um, and no, you are just attached to judgments because you are attached to religion and ideals and feel religious dogmas worthy of trust. You are making such unbelievable moronic comparisons. I feel you simply can't cope with the reality, not fishing your religiously influenced minds. It's not really influenced minds. I think that religion is made for a reason, and the people fought, and our societies they were built on the religious values. They were built on religion, and to just exclude it completely and say you know that they're stupid ideologies, and no one should listen to them. It's silly. You live in an imaginary world. People also drank a lot in the past, since water was not. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that um, during prohibition in America, they banned alcohol, and people were still buying it in the underground market and whatnot. But when it was not banned, when it was prohibited or unprohibited, then people obviously drink it more. When like people would do more drugs if drugs weren't illegal, is what I'm trying to say. And having sex outside of marriage, people obviously did it less back then compared to now. Of course, that's a fact. That's a cap. Be fire prohibition before the 20th century. Sure, okay. But what do you? Yeah, sure, it was before prohibition, before the 20. Yeah, I know. I'm talking about before. People definitely had less sex. I mean, there's how can you? We can't argue that. That's 100% true. There was definitely yeah, sure, there was some promiscuity here and there, but there was definitely way less sex happening. We can't argue that. That has to be true. Anything that says otherwise is just false propaganda. It's just false propaganda. I mean, and they're not moronic comparisons. I think that uh, they were a good example. I mean, we shouldn't just act out on how we feel. But anyway, and you're saying that I feel you simply can't cope with our reality not fitting our religiously influenced mind. Look, it's not religious. It is religiously influenced, but that's for a good reason, right? I mean, if religion was so ridiculous, then why does most of the modern world still believe in it? You think most people are idiots? Probably not. Why have some of the greatest inventors in history still believe in religion? It's because there's some truth to it. It's not just bullshit. And to be honest, the fundamental basis of society. You look at the problems with the West right now. The main things that are being stated even by Donald Trump, JD Vance, or even countries like the UK or Europe. It's like and the AFD winning 20%. Oh, Europe is a Christian country. That's what they keep saying. Europe is a Christian country. Europe is a Christian country. Or sorry, Europe's not even a country, but the US is a Christian country. The UK is a Christian country. Europe's a Christian continent. They keep saying things like this, and it's because it's the foundation of society. It's the religious books of history, the greatest creation or the greatest invention that mankind has ever created. You just realize how many false beliefs you have because you can't believe studied. You appeal to majority. You are falling far. You are falling for logical fallacies. You're falling for logical fallacies. they're not logical fallacies. And look, what I'm fundamentally saying here is that you know what, Grandstands, I'm going to get my Rumble set up, and then we're going to talk about this more. But sometimes you argue about this all the time. People in power pushing agendas, blah 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 blah. You appeal to majority. No, no, just listen to this. You always argue this. So do you think the people in power, do you think they have enough power to push certain agendas online and because they control the media, right? The media is government funded good, especially here or even in other countries. Do you not think they have the power to control the media and to push certain agendas forward? Of course they do. And if they want to push something that leads to the failure of society, like literally a Trojan horse, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it because the people in power don't want our best intentions. And how is appealing to the majority a logical fallacy? Maybe I could be wrong. You realize the church propaganda was endorsed by nobles in the past. Sure, it was, but I think the people of the church, they were a bit extreme with their beliefs, but I don't think they wanted. I think I would prefer to have a leader who's a priest in a church who might be a bit extreme than Satanists run our country, or people who believe in nothing but money and sex, and funded by the nobles and by the rich. So secular propaganda was irrelevant. U.S. the church endorsed nobles in the past and it was funded by the nobles and by the rich. So secular yeah, sure it was, but yeah, you could argue that religion keeps society content, like because it says oh even if you're poor you're gonna go into the kingdom of heaven, but you're poor, so you shouldn't riot or anything because when you're poor you're actually better off than the rich man. I can see how arguments like that can you know definitely be a problem, but I think the whole idea, if we're talking about sex primarily, I think religion promotes a good thing, definitely. I think I'm okay. I'm not saying the fullness of it, but I think that having extreme amounts of casual sex, like literally girls, I'm not saying this is every girl, but girls nowadays, the age of 22 having bodies over 20, having slept with 20 guys, I don't think that's good for society. You talk about manipulation by propaganda, but now you ignore the state powered church, which pushed beliefs on mostly uneducated masses. No, it definitely did, and you know what? In Islamic countries, that's still happening to this day, right? I mean, a lot of you call them, I think, imams. They push certain agendas to, uh, these whatever Sunni or Shia Muslims, and that still happens to this day. It doesn't happen much in the West, but even in Africa, lots of church leaders they push certain ideologies and certain agendas to uneducated masses, sure, but um, to argue that that occurred far more than 1,005 years in it happened way more. You're saying that the agendas, yeah, but what I'm saying is, yeah, they might have pushed some bad agendas, but I'm saying the sex one wasn't bad. You know what I mean? Just like I don't think the inclusivity agenda that's being pushed now is bad, but some agendas are definitely bad and they lead to the fall of society. I mean, how is literally not having that much sex, how is that going to destroy society? You know what I mean? But having a bunch of sex is definitely destroying society. I mean, we're seeing it in real time. Literally, and you just described it. You said, some men are ugly and they can't get girls. The reason they can't get girls is because women are so picky, and the reason they're so picky is because they have so many options. If every guy was wifed up to a girl, there'll be a woman waiting for you eventually. And because they were excited about sex, they would probably want to get married so they can have it. It was bad. Sexuality repressed individuals is bad. What are they going to do though? Are they a harm to society? You know what I mean? Are they a harm to society? And it wasn't like they were repressed. They could have sex, and people back then tended to get married at a much earlier age, and women also tended to get married at a much earlier age, like the ages of 15 or 16. So they would also have sex early, but they would just have it with one person, ideally in the eyes of the church. But yeah. But um we might we'll talk a bit. You make no sense. Think about risks and consequences by condemning sex. They're not condemning it though. They just said you should have it within a marriage, or at least within. Look, that's the main point. It's not about not having sex at all. It's about doing it within a certain framework, and just have like, of course. Okay, what are the risks realistically? I mean, okay, let's talk about the risks of having just casual sex, spreading diseases, STDs, and creating new diseases, right? Um, literal mental health issues, because it does affect the brain for the bad, in a negative way sometimes. And then it also ruins society. That girl that you've had sex with, maybe, and let's say she keeps having sex with like six different guys, that hurts her ability to find a man. Because if a man had a girl who's super beautiful, and she had another girl who's the exact same and is as beautiful as her, but one had 10 bodies and the other had zero bodies, who do you think he's picking? He's picking the girl with zero bodies. Church condemning sex which had no burning as purpose. Church condemning sex which had no burning, oh, sorry. Church condemned sex which had no childbearing as a purpose. But they didn't condemn it. They just said do it within a marriage. If anything, they promoted. Even in the podcast, they said that the main reason to have sex was to have a kid. So that is why only sex inside marriage was allowed. Oh, okay, I see your point. Okay. Yeah, 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 I understand that. But it was also because there was no contraception at the time. And if you had sex outside of marriage, you could literally have the risk of getting women pregnant. And if guys had a lot of sex, a lot of these, and back then you couldn't tell who the father was, right? So if a girl was having a lot of sex, she wouldn't know who the husband. I mean, yeah, who the child's father was, because she wouldn't know the kid. Then there wasn't a way of testing. There wasn't a way of testing the DNA to see what. So it is practical in the sense. The kid needs to know who the father is. The father needs to know if they're a father, because having just casual sex back then was, there was contraception. Condom made of sheep intestine was a thing. Yeah, but it wasn't really spread. It wasn't like people weren't educated about it and people weren't using it. Nowadays, people are educated about it and people are using it. But back then, people weren't using contraception. People might have not even heard about it, and it wasn't produced in mass because I guarantee you the peasants weren't able to acquire things like that. But yeah, yeah, but there's just so many problems with it, like for the father issue, giving birth to a random kid, especially if you're doing it casually back in the day, the religious laws behind it, um, you know, I guess disease wasn't a problem back then, but yeah, just how the society would look at you if they found out. Um, there's so many issues with it, but so it definitely was not happening at the rate that it happens nowadays. But remember, even through that was rare brothels and casual sex was common. Yeah, but the thing with brothels was like these girls were seen as like no one would marry someone from a brothel typically. Like no one would really marry a prostitute. So they weren't yeah, they would have kids who grew up fatherless. I think they took up the majority of the single mothers because yeah, they were seen as like foul in that time. So no one would actually want to marry them. But yeah, even if they did, it was rare though. It was rare. I mean, it definitely happens way more now, is what I'm saying. That's Look, I think it's indisputable. It happens more now than it has before. There were women who used sex to gain wealth and power. Yeah, they were a few, but I mean they're a minority though. You know what I mean? They are a minority, and yeah, typically people tend to get, at least back then, typically people would tend to get married within their certain sectors. So like a king would typically get married to someone who's like okay, but wait, let me just explain. Typically someone who was like a king, maybe he would give his daughter to, the Spanish prince, for relations or something like that. But it's not like there were kings getting married to peasants, or a peasant trying to work their way up. That wasn't common, I doubt it. And you look at the French royal phenomenon. Maybe there was something. I'm not. I'll look at it later, but because the stream is about to end. But we'll be on tomorrow though. But French royal courtesy, we can definitely look into it. But it might have just been a minority situation. It might have been a. I don't think it was definitely not common. Remember seeing kids, their property was encouraged by church. Yeah, it was, and I'm not saying everything the church promoted was good at the time, but I think that the sexual thing, I'm not saying it was great. Yeah, maybe you could allow for some more individuality, but I think the message behind the sex thing, I think it was a good message. Is what I'm trying to say. But let me make this bigger. But anyway, um, I think we'll end there. I'll be on every day this week, most probably. I'll let you know otherwise. So just join the Telegram. I gave you the link earlier. Um, and yeah, you were just residing to deal with how bad church propaganda was against sexual expression it caused. I'm not residing. I'm saying that there were some benefits to it. It's not just or refusing. Yeah, but literally, I mean, you refuse to address the arguments that I'm making. You wouldn't know who the father was. There's a risk of getting pregnant. Yeah, the church would look down upon you, so you'd have to go through a whole process, and society would frown upon you. And what I'm trying, the whole basis of this argument is basically people tended to typically have less sex than they did back then compared to now. And then the whole argument there is back then people tended to be more happy. I mean, we look at the suicide rates now, we look at the mental health issues now, we look at the most, uh, you know, yeah, we look at all these problems that we have nowadays. Is more sex benefiting us? I would argue against it. Research, okay, I'll type it in now. I'll just paste it into Google. In I'll read it right after the stream. Industrial societies. You mean Injustice Society? This is like some comic book stuff. Like, what is this? This cartoon? Injustice is, I think, it auto-corrected. It definitely auto-corrected. Inguestia. Okay. Is this, just tell me which one it is. I'm gonna read it after stream. Or yeah, a bit later maybe. I need to just eat food. I haven't eaten dinner yet. Order food. Is it this? I'm guessing it's this, right? No, this is it's about Muslims. I don't know if it's about this. Yes. Is it this? Just let me know if it's that. Um, but yeah, we'll end stream. There. But yeah, join my Telegram, bro. Um, I'll keep you updated there. I'll probably be streaming tomorrow. If I don't stream tomorrow, I'll definitely be on Thursday and Friday and Saturday. So, okay, I'll click on that. Okay. I'll look at that and I'll read it afterwards. But yeah, definitely join my Telegram, and I'll be on. If not tomorrow, I'll be on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, um, and I'll keep you updated because as I said at the beginning of this stream, someone in my family, something's happening, so I might have to be flying, but I don't know. So I'll keep you updated. But otherwise, thank you for coming in. Thank you all for tuning in again, and I much appreciate you guys. Much love to you guys, and